In the opening months of 2025, the world held its breath as Israel launched a series of targeted airstrikes on Iran's most sensitive nuclear facilities. The night sky over the Middle East was lit by explosions, and the decades-long tension between these two nations suddenly erupted into a new and dangerous phase. For many, it felt like the culmination of years of warnings, threats, and secret preparations, now playing out in real time on screens across the globe. News of the attacks on Natanz and Fordo spread rapidly, sparking urgent debate in capitals and living rooms alike. Was this a justified preemptive move to prevent a nuclear-armed Iran, or a reckless act that could plunge the entire region into war? The world was suddenly forced to confront a question that had lingered for years. How far should a nation go to protect itself, and at what cost to global stability? Israeli officials, facing intense scrutiny, insisted the strikes were absolutely necessary. They claimed that new intelligence showed Iran was just weeks away from assembling its first nuclear weapon, and that waiting any longer would have been catastrophic. Their message was clear: Israel acted to prevent an existential threat. Around the world, governments scrambled to assess the situation. How close was Iran really to building a bomb? Was the threat as imminent as Israel claimed, or had the risk been exaggerated for political reasons? Intelligence was fragmented and often contradictory. Different nations interpreted the same data through their own security lenses, colored by alliances, rivalries, and past experiences. The fog of uncertainty only deepened the crisis. The International Atomic Energy Agency, or IAEA, provided technical reports and inspections, but the true intent behind Iran's nuclear program remained elusive. Technical data could only reveal so much. Motives and ambitions were harder to measure. The core question haunted every discussion. Was Israel averting a disaster, or igniting one? Was this the only way to stop a nuclear crisis, or the spark that could set the region ablaze? To answer, we must look back at Iran's nuclear history, examine the technical data, and consider the intelligence assessments that shaped this moment. Only by understanding the path that led here, can we hope to grasp the stakes. By breaking down the components of a nuclear weapons program and tracking Iran's progress on each, we can better understand just how close the world came to a turning point, and what might come next. This is not just a theoretical debate. The answer to these questions will shape global security, influence the future of nuclear non-proliferation, and determine how nations respond to threats in an increasingly uncertain world. Let's unravel the evidence, the intelligence, and the urgency behind the 2025 crisis, because understanding what happened may be the key to preventing the next catastrophe. Iran's nuclear story began in the 1950s, with US support for peaceful energy. The 1979 Islamic Revolution shifted the program's focus to national security and secrecy. In 2002, revelations of hidden enrichment facilities at Natanz and Arak triggered an international crisis. Uranium enrichment, dual use for energy or bombs, became the flashpoint. Sanctions and inspections followed, but Iran pressed on, insisting its program was peaceful. The standoff deepened, with Iran expanding its centrifuges and uranium stockpile despite mounting pressure. Regional rivals saw a threat. Iran claimed it needed deterrence. The cycle of mistrust and escalation brought the region to the brink, proving that sanctions and threats alone couldn't resolve the crisis. A new diplomatic approach was desperately needed. In 2015, diplomacy triumphed with the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JCPOA. Iran agreed to strict limits, slashing uranium stockpiles, dismantling centrifuges, and capping enrichment far below weapons grade. The Arak reactor was redesigned and intrusive IAEA inspections began. For several years, Iran complied, and the world stepped back from the nuclear brink. Critics argued the deal was temporary and ignored missiles and regional behavior. Supporters saw it as a vital firewall, buying time and building trust. The JCPOA's success was real but fragile, and political controversy simmered. Ultimately, the deal's limitations and looming expiration set the stage for its unraveling. The calm would not last. In 2018, the US made a pivotal decision. It withdrew from the JCPOA, the landmark Iran nuclear deal that had been painstakingly negotiated just a few years earlier. The announcement sent shockwaves through the international community, raising immediate concerns about the future of nuclear diplomacy in the Middle East. The US quickly reimposed sweeping economic sanctions, shattering the delicate balance that the agreement had created. Iran's economy, already under strain, was hit hard, with ordinary citizens feeling the brunt of renewed pressure. Despite this, Iran initially held back, waiting a year before responding. But after a year of patience, Iran began systematically breaching the agreement's terms, first by exceeding uranium stockpile limits, then by enriching uranium to 20%, and eventually to 60%, a level far beyond civilian needs. Advanced centrifuges, previously restricted, were brought online, dramatically increasing Iran's enrichment capacity. Each escalation was carefully announced and verified by the International Atomic Energy Agency, ensuring the world was watching every move. Iran's strategy was clear: to increase its nuclear leverage in hopes of forcing economic relief or bringing the US and Europe back to the negotiating table. By early 2025, the situation had become critical. Iran's breakout time, the period needed to produce enough weapons-grade uranium for a single nuclear bomb, had shrunk alarmingly, from months to just weeks or even days, according to some estimates. The world now faced the reality of a nuclear threshold Iran, a nation on the very brink of acquiring the material needed for a nuclear weapon. With international safeguards eroding and diplomatic efforts stalling, the prospects for a peaceful resolution seemed to be slipping away. Israeli leaders, long wary of Iran's intentions, saw the window for a peaceful solution rapidly closing, heightening their sense of urgency. The rapid acceleration of Iran's nuclear program, combined with the collapse of the JCPOA, created a volatile and unpredictable situation. Israel, feeling increasingly threatened, began to consider its own options, including the possibility of direct action to halt Iran's progress. The stakes had never been higher, with the entire region on edge and global leaders scrambling to prevent a wider conflict. The Middle East teetered on the edge of war, as military buildups and threats of retaliation became daily headlines. The world's response in this moment would not only determine the fate of Iran's nuclear ambitions, but also shape the future of global nuclear non-proliferation efforts for years to come. The crisis had reached a tipping point, one that the world could no longer afford to ignore. By mid-2025, IAEA reports confirmed Iran had amassed a large stockpile of uranium enriched to 60%, dangerously close to weapons grade. Experts agreed Iran could produce enough fissile material for several bombs in weeks, but breakout time only measures uranium production, not the complex steps of weaponization. Iran's reduced cooperation with the IAEA, removing cameras, limiting access, created dangerous knowledge gaps. Without transparency, worst-case scenarios loomed large. US and Israeli intelligence agreed on Iran's technical progress, but split on intent. US agencies saw no evidence of a final decision to build a bomb. Israel argued capability alone was the real threat. The world was left to interpret incomplete data, with deadly consequences possible. The debate over Iran's intentions fueled global anxiety. Misinformation and mistrust made the crisis even more volatile. The stakes were nothing less than war or peace. Highly enriched uranium is only part of the bomb equation. Weaponization is the final, most complex hurdle. Turning raw nuclear material into a functional weapon requires a leap in both technology and engineering. It's not just about having the right ingredients. It's about assembling them in a way that works under extreme conditions, with absolute precision. This means designing a warhead that can survive launch and detonation, mastering the intricate science of implosion technology, and building a reliable delivery system such as a missile or aircraft that can carry the weapon to its target. Each step is a massive technical challenge requiring years of research, testing, and expertise. Most public assessments in 2025 said Iran's weaponization work lagged behind its uranium enrichment. While Iran had made significant progress in producing enriched uranium, experts believed the country still faced major obstacles in turning that material into a usable warhead. US intelligence saw no active bomb program, estimating Iran would need 1 to 2 years to build a deliverable weapon if it chose to pursue one. This assessment was based on technical hurdles, the need for extensive testing, and the absence of clear evidence of ongoing weaponization activities. This window of time was the main argument for continued diplomacy. It gave world powers a chance to negotiate, apply pressure, and seek peaceful solutions before Iran could cross the threshold. Israeli intelligence, however, warned that Iran's past research and hidden expertise could allow a much faster sprint to a bomb, perhaps as little as 6 months if the decision was made. Their concern was that not all progress was visible to outsiders. The gap between US caution and Israeli alarm was at the heart of the crisis. These differing assessments fueled intense debate among allies and shaped the world's response to the unfolding situation. The world had to choose: act on worst-case scenarios and risk escalation, or trust that there was still time to prevent disaster through negotiation and oversight. The fate of the Middle East, and perhaps global security, hung in the balance. Every decision carried enormous consequences for the region and the world. The final step remained shrouded in uncertainty, hidden behind layers of secrecy, technical complexity, and international suspicion. The world could only watch, wait, and hope for a peaceful outcome. The timeline for Iran's bomb had global consequences. For Saudi Arabia and the UAE, a nuclear Iran threatened regional stability and could spark a dangerous arms race. Oil markets panicked, prices soared, and the risk of global recession loomed. The choice between diplomacy and war hinged on whether Iran was months or years from a weapon. A nuclear-armed Iran would undermine the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, encouraging others to follow suit. The world's security architecture was at risk. Preventing a nuclear domino effect became the overriding goal. The stakes were existential for the region and the world. After the Israeli strikes, Iran vowed retaliation and threatened to expel IAEA inspectors and quit the NPT. The strikes damaged key sites, slowing Iran's program but not destroying it. This setback created a brief window for renewed diplomacy, but trust was shattered. Iran felt betrayed. The West saw Iran's advances as a breach of faith. Any new deal would require deep compromises, real sanctions relief for Iran, tougher inspections for the world. The alternative was a spiral of retaliation and war, with devastating consequences for the region and global economy. Military action might delay Iran's program, but not erase its knowledge. A bombed Iran could become even more determined to build a weapon. The crisis risked becoming a permanent escalating cycle. The world faced a stark choice: war or one last shot at diplomacy. In 2025, Iran stood closer than ever to a bomb, weeks from enough uranium, but still a year or more from a deliverable weapon. The Israeli strikes didn't end the crisis, they transformed it, shifting the debate from prevention to managing escalation. The world faced imperfect information, clashing intelligence, and the collapse of trust. The outcome would shape energy prices, the risk of war, and the future of nuclear non-proliferation. The stakes were global, the dangers immediate. Only clear-eyed analysis and persistent diplomacy could avert catastrophe. The challenge: stop Iran's bomb without plunging the world into war. The clock was ticking, and the world was watching.